Warning: the radio broadcast you're about to hear was made by men and for men. It may at times seem a little rough around the edges, brash, and certainly not canonically approved by papal authority. But its content may indeed challenge you to become the man, father, husband God has called you to be. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to another week of The Obligation. I hope everyone has had a great week. We're now closing in on the Thanksgiving holiday, which is just around the corner. A time to, of course, fill our bellies with some good food and spend time with our family, but also more importantly, a time to reflect on all that we have been blessed with in our lives and give thanks. God has blessed each one of us tremendously with material, physical gifts, but most importantly, the spiritual gift of our faith and His most beloved Son. This year, with the first Sunday of Advent falling just 3 days after Thanksgiving, we have a great opportunity to continue this thankfulness into the new year of the church and prepare for the coming of Christ. Here to speak with us again today is author Charles Fraune, the author of the book Slaying Dragons, What Exorcists See and What We Should Know. Charles, I'll start my Thanksgiving now and say thank you once again for coming on. Welcome back to The Obligation.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on. It's good to be back, and it's a great topic. It's exciting that Advent is right around the corner.
It is. It is. So let's talk turkey for just a second. You know, here in the South, over the past several years, we've seen an increase in the phenomenon of fried turkeys. Charles, what is your take on the fried turkey? How do you like your turkey?
I think I've only had a fried turkey once.
Okay.
I've been hearing rumors that our turkey this year will be fried as well.
Okay.
But I can't remember the fried turkey I had. So whenever I think turkey, I think, fresh out of the oven.
Yep.
Nice and juicy and sliced by, I don't think I've really had the honor to carve a turkey just yet. We're always usually at a patriarch, a grandparent's house.
Yeah, so. I know. I remember the first time my mom asked me to slice up a turkey. I thought that was big time,
That's right. You finally made it.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, that was always, like you said, the patriarch kind of setting or responsibility, and I kind of went after it. So I've sliced up my number of fish in my life, so I just kind of went with it, and it came out okay. So I took it, dressed it up, pulled the legs off, and kind of just made this little arrangement on the tray. As far as fried turkeys go, I remember it's probably been 30 years. I remember when that idea, I was living in Louisiana back then, and that was a big deal. I mean, anytime the big pots come out in Louisiana, though, you're usually looking at crawfish or crabs or shrimp. So whenever the big pots came out during Thanksgiving, that was kind of a novel idea. That was interesting, and I got to say, it was a pretty wonderful thing. They have this thing down there called the Cajun injector. Take that big old injection and they put it into the turkey and then send that baby down. And I remember seeing those turkeys hanging on the back porch, after they fried, they just hang. And so it was a pretty interesting event. I know that people have to be very careful if you're going to fry a turkey. I know the fire department, always having issues with fried turkeys because people don't thaw them out all the way. So if they're still frozen and that ice becomes the water and the oil, and you got a big mess on your hands. So if anybody out there going to do a fried turkey, I would say be very careful. I do like the fried turkeys. They got to be done right. I think I'm more of a traditionalist. I think if I had to go, choose one or the other, I'd probably go with a traditional turkey. The only fried turkey I've had up in North Carolina was from Bojangles one year. I don't know why. It was an idea. I was like, let's get us Bojangles offered a fried turkey. And I got to say, I was not impressed. And that has been the only fried turkey I've had since I've been up here in North Carolina. So we'll see. I don't think there's going to be any fried turkey in our future here. But I do have to say another thing, that last year was the first year since being married, so 17 years, that we've actually had our own Thanksgiving in our house. So waking up to that, it brought me back to my childhood, because that was always a wonderful thing as a kid. I'm sure you remember, Thanksgiving morning, you wake up and you all these wonderful smells going on. So we really haven't had that. We've always gone to the in-laws and have a wonderful meal over there, but everything's always prepared over there. So we didn't get all that, and we didn't have all the leftovers. So I'm looking forward to this year. Once again, I think we're having an early Thanksgiving at our house so that we can enjoy that. So
Yeah, yeah. Thanksgiving's always been a big feast for us. And we kind of in a transition mode because the different grandparents I used to go to, they've passed away. So everything's shifting back towards my wife's side of the family because that's where we live. And different house each year, it seems, of somebody in the family's preparing it or providing the hub.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's fun. It's nice that the United States has this tradition, despite all the problems that we have with this culture. Thanksgiving has not completely been jettisoned, though I've heard of people now, letting Black Friday is now like dominating even Thanksgiving Day. People are just shopping in the morning and then going out to lunch. And I heard about this recently from somebody. So hopefully that's not a trend.
Yeah, I agree. I know that I've seen some ads here popping up even today. There's some of these early Monday sales are starting already. So, I know they've got, the Black Friday, but then they've got the Cyber Monday, which is the Monday afterwards. And I'll tell you, for me, if I'm going to do any of that sale shopping, it's going to be Cyber Monday because I'm not going to be anywhere near the malls or the crowds. And I do about 90% of my shopping anyway online. But yeah, no, I agree. Having Thanksgiving, I'm surprised that we're even able to have that publicly called Thanksgiving because it does automatically invoke that idea of giving thanks, to a higher power, which is, obviously how it was founded. And I'm sure it's been picked apart, to where it doesn't, we certainly can't insinuate that there is a higher power. But that idea of, giving thanks to a higher power and continuing that act of thankfulness and appreciation for everything in our lives. Certainly that's not something that you see very often. I've often talked, on the show many times, just speaking to men and if they've kind of gotten away from the faith or never really got involved with their faith. For me, looking at it, I always recall that the acronym ACTS, adoration, contrition, thanksgiving, and supplication, which is sort of a progression of prayer, a natural progression of prayer, how you should enter into prayer. But I always thought that like the Thanksgiving for me, I think that's probably the easiest one for someone who's not familiar with prayer. I think the ACTS is very understandable for someone who is involved with prayer and kind of already there. But for someone who's kind of floating along, I think the adoration is tough because if you're already questioning the belief that there's even a higher power, perhaps that God's even there, adoration is going to be a tough one. Contrition, unfortunately, today's world, that's not something that's easy to say you're sorry, to acknowledge you've done something wrong, because what is wrong these days? Whatever you think, whatever you feel. So then, of course, Thanksgiving. And then the supplication part, that's when I think we abuse. That's sort of if you flip it around and you have it in reverse order, that's something I think everybody certainly abuses, because their prayers tend to be what they want, what they need. And that whole beginning portion of giving, adoration and acknowledging God and the thanksgiving and the contrition part is often forgotten. So I think I usually steer guys into Thanksgiving. At least say thank you for your life, these simple things, for your heart, for your health, for your family, for your house, your business, all of these things. I think that comes a little bit naturally. That's for me looking at it, kind of thinking, my mind frame, maybe from, years ago, when I was kind of going through this struggle. What are your thoughts on this here ACTS acronym?
Yeah, I use that. So I have another book, Swords and Shadows, which is about directed at youth and their parents when it comes to spiritual warfare. And I put in the back, I have a lot of supplemental things, and one of them is encouraging them to pray using ACTS, because I found that very handy. It's easy to remember, it flows naturally, but I agree with the ease. Like a lot of people don't know how to adore God if they don't pray. So, a lot of Christians today are very secularized. And if we don't pray regularly, we forget who God is. We don't know how to approach him. Sometimes there can be a little bit of fear, and we don't know what to do. I remember one priest, probably about 20 years ago, told me that gratitude, so the T, the thankfulness, is like a key to God's heart. The more gratitude we have for what he's given us, the more he will be inclined to give us more. So it's appropriate that Thanksgiving comes right before supplication, because if we are grateful, we appreciate what he's done, that kind of binds us to him, increases the relationship. And you really have to be a friend of God if you want to if you want him to answer your special requests. He always answers like, Lord, save me from, forgive me my sins. He's going to always forgive us. But if you ask for something special, like you're trying to be a saint and you want someone to be healed, well, you need to have a deep relationship with him for that kind of power to essentially flow. Right. So the more, and if you look at the saints who are always joyful, they have a spirit of gratitude. They are appreciative of everything God has given, and then they ask, and that's a friendship with God.
Yeah, it certainly puts us in a position of humility, right? To be thankful and acknowledge that we didn't create these things, and we're not the masters of our own destiny in a sense, which, in today's world, that's kind of, you can be whatever you want to be, you can accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. You're in control of your destiny, and I think that's where we need to kind of humble ourselves and realize we are not. We certainly can direct and guide things in an appropriate manner, in our state in life and what we work towards. But all of this, of course, has to fall under the gratitude, and the thankfulness and the acknowledgement that we are the creature. We are not the creator. And so it's a beautiful relationship, and how, learning that navigation. It's just a cycle that continually works together with the adoration and the contrition and thanksgiving, the supplication, and it flows so well. I think it is, like you said, we're right on the heels of Advent. No greater gift than our Lord certainly coming to be with us and give up his life for us. They say, there's a song that I remember the kids, they always sing when they have the Christmas pageants and things, that, Christ is the giver and the gift. And it's such a simple idea, but a wonderful idea that it's that just cycle. He's the giver and the gift. It's just a continuation. And the more, that we are thankful, the more he wants to give himself to us. So it's a great image there for sure.
If you look at the timing, because, with the work I do, I look at how many people are being lured away by the occult and how diminished the faith has become. But we live in a post-Christian society. So a society that has the memory, at least the memory, if it doesn't see it happening, of Christianity. So when Thanksgiving comes, it's on the just after the harvest. So we're enjoying all this great food, and even for those who are secularized or even paganized, if they're inclined to the occult, they're going to have to focus on the fact that a higher power brought forth food from the ground. And most people, even if they're lost in the occult, know that that's not a work of the demons. And it's an intellectual frustration, at least, which could dispose them to questioning, drifting away from God so far, and draw them back. And unless their families are really broken. So there's a dimension there, because if Thanksgiving is miserable, then that can be a way of the devil kind of blocking this grace that God wants to give people through this secular holiday we have called Thanksgiving. Oh, yeah. But it's also, like you were saying, Christ is the giver and the gift. We just celebrated Thanksgiving, all of the gifts, all the natural gifts. And we then begin Advent, which is the preparation for the great supernatural gift, which is the incarnation. So it's really divine providence, the way it's been paired up. These two, right after All Saints, All Souls, Halloween, the secular and the Catholic Halloween, going into Thanksgiving and into Christmas, it's really this spiritual time that needs to be captured, needs to be made the most of. All of November and December into January. So hopefully, that's something the church can take advantage of. I'm kind of like having an idea right now, like with my work, like to really seize November and December, absolutely, based on what this theme that we've just kind of laid out here.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's the world has worked. It's magic, its power to really take control of the month of, like, we have the end of October, of course, and just convert it into this materialism, this whole 2 months of just materialism and consumerism, and just kind of squash down this idea of the saints, the Halloween, starting with Halloween, and going all the way through to Christmas. It's just, we see the Christmas stuff coming out with the Halloween stuff now. I mean, it's just this push, and let's get this out of here. Let's push this agenda. And, but, speaking to a point of, like you said, the secularization of the world, and this lack of this faith that seems to be just, barely hanging on. We had like parent-teacher conferences a week or so ago. My wife attended one of the schools, and the religion teacher kind of told her that our son raised his hand, one of 5, I guess, in a class, and I'm not sure how big the classes are, I imagine around 30 or so, and that one of 5 kids that actually believe in the real presence. This is in a Catholic school, so basically he's at 27%. And he sounds like he's a very faithful teacher, and his goal is to get 100%. Please God, our prayers are with him that he can accomplish that, because that would be a wonderful thing, but a very difficult thing. And he says it's reflective. That 27% of belief in the real presence is pretty much reflective of the church as a whole. And that's a sad number. It's not a surprising number. I mean, it makes sense, look at the pews these days in church, it makes sense without people being there, especially after the pandemic and the obligation, lifted for so long. The ones who were barely going, probably aren't going, or they're going much less. And the ones who are faithful, and there's always that remnant, we hear our Lord talk about the remnant. There's always that remnant, and there'll always be faith. So, what does that number, what does that tell you? Looking at that from inside of our Catholic schools, 27% believe in the true presence. It's staggering.
Yeah, but it's real. Like from my work, I would say 27%, like sounds like it went up, from my experiences, but it's great.
That's the kids. That's the kids. That's the ones who are getting something every day, now asking the parents, that could be a different story, but anyway.
That's a good point, because and that's one of the reasons why I think people have so much trouble, is because this is a secularized society. So day to day, moment to moment, hour to hour, even devout Catholics are living in a secular world. And devout Catholics need the constant reassurance, the constant reminders, visual examples of people who believe, people talking in a pious way. Like our language is secularized, our expressions are secularized, our clothing. And the more that we live in that, the more even devout Catholics suffer. Like I feel it. It's a constant battle, even apart from what, temptation, what demons will bring with temptation. Like just trying to maintain a devotional mindset in a secular culture is rough. Yeah. Even with like religious work, even though I do religious work, it's a constant maintenance. So if most people are not daily doing things that draw them to God, most people can't get to daily mass just because they can't. They might want to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a shocking. And so often I brainstorm with people, like when I do podcasts, like what can we do to really actually use the weapons Christ has given us, the graces and sacramentals and sacraments, to flip the culture. Yeah. But it's you need it. It's a movement. You need it's a team effort.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I always talk about being that light out in the world. We have to be those lights out in the world, and those lights, a single light, in a dark cave, even though there's some light, it's still a little scary. Of course, if we have several candles lit and there's enough, around, there's not going to be the spooky little shadows and the reflections, that you would have just with one light, one candle. But it's our job to help others relight. And so, as practicing faithful Catholics, there are those things that the world is certainly kicking against. And unfortunately, other parents, I won't say are kicking against, but maybe are just allowing to happen just because it's what we do. It's okay. You know, all the kids have cell phones. We need to have cell phones. All the kids wear the clothing like this, and all the kids speak like this. It's what's on TV. You know, it's how we talk. It's who we are. You know, so we're going through that. You know, we've got a 14-year-old, and he's probably, I don't know, he's probably in the 5% or less at the school without a cell phone. And we're just not there. There's no reason. I mean, once he's driving and he's, somewhere by himself and there's not going to be anyone else around and he needs to get in touch with us, we'll probably look at something that has limited access. He'll be one of those kids that the world totally makes fun of. And I see it all the time about the poor kids that, only have text message or phone activation, and they don't have full access to the internet and Google and the social media. But it takes us, who don't believe in these things, to have withhold from giving into those whims and making sure our children are dressed modestly. And, sometimes it's a little uncomfortable, but I'll tell you, pretty much every parent I know that's given their kid a cell phone under the age of 14 or 15, I've heard at one point or time and another that they regret doing it. And then the other side of that is, well, we wish we didn't. I'm like, well, they don't have to keep it. But I think that they just like, once you do, it's tough to go back. So yeah, we just have to stand up and stand out, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and people are going to think we're probably weird and we're Amish and whatever, we're old school and old timers and we're not as fun as everyone else. But, we're going to have to do what we got to do to make sure our children are brought up with solid foundation in the faith and they're not tainted. The world's going to taint them. At some point, the world's going to get in there and they're going to taint them, but I'm going to protect them, and as long as I can, until their brains are more developed that, to be able to discern and reflect back on what they've been taught and the foundation that they've been built on. So it's tough. It's a very tough call.
Yeah, I think parents need to understand, need to reflect constantly on all the dangers that phones, for example, and immodest clothing, like the culture, all the things, all the gifts and joys and celebrated things of the secular culture are dangerous. They present concrete dangers and with threats of real wounds, real harm that can come through them. And parents need to reflect on it, not just be told it or read a book, but the more they think about it, the more it's, because what you were saying reminded me of a conversation I had at some point that I said that one generation might be required to make a big sacrifice to help reset the culture. And now that I have 3 kids, number 4 on the way, and all of them are too young for phones at the moment, thankfully. I don't have that worry yet, but they're going to get older soon. So it seems like the generation that needs to make the sacrifice are not our kids, but us, the parents right now, who are to raise our children right. We're going to have to be very brave, bold, courageous, willing to be rejected and misunderstood, willing to lose friends, willing to, and it's hard to really understand how it's going to play out, but in order to protect our kids. And then if more people do it, again, this is the team thing. We need a movement. We need the church. We need to hear this from bishops and priests too. Yeah. So if bishops and priests would stand up and encourage this kind of conversation, people to do these things, then people will feel morally convicted to follow the sound reasoning, the spiritual reasoning of these spiritual fathers, and they'll do it. But right now, grassroots movements are good, but it's like the grass can only do so much. You need trees, you need mountains, you need birds, so to speak, to use the image of the grassroots. But it's possible, and we do have priests who are starting to realize it, and bishops, that they need to be bolder.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think there's another movement that's been going on, and that movement is at least from faithful, and I don't want to say just Catholics, but I think faithful Christians as a whole, the birth rate, I from my perspective, has increased greatly. And I'm someone speaking from 6 kids as well. Congratulations on number 4 on the way. And I was thinking on that the other day and think, that is how do you strengthen numbers? And the only way is to create more foot soldiers and send them out. And by creating, these children and building them on solid principles of Christ and sending them out in the world, that's how we do it. We infiltrate. And so you see a lot of larger families. I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, looking back 20 years, 30 years, and maybe it's just my age, but I don't remember the number of families having the number of kids they're having these days. It just seems like it's grown. And I think that's how you do it, because like you said, you can't do it alone. And I'm not saying that, one family can do it, but 10 families with, multiple kids and, creating these additional generations to go out there and stand up against this. Of course, our bishops have to speak. They have to be more verbal. Our priests have to be verbal. And I think in the Diocese of Charlotte, I think we are exceptionally blessed with priests who get it and see it. And you're seeing a lot of seminarians and priests starting to come out who come from large families, multiple kids, multiple brothers going through the seminary. And it's a movement. And then we just need to remain faithful and steadfast, set a good example in humility. And it can't be in a prideful, judgmental way, because the world, as soon as they sense one piece of judgment or pride, they'll throw it right back at you. So it has to be in just a humble, quiet way, in a silent way, like the Holy Family, Saint Joseph, not speaking a word in Scripture yet. That family changed the world. So lots of work to be done by Christian foot soldiers, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, and with schools as well. Like a lot of people are banding together with these. Like our kids are still so young right now, but like loose federations, I guess, of I don't know how you word it, but all these families getting together with small kids. So the kids start to see all these big families, because all the families are having more and more babies. There are babies everywhere, and that's a good psychological conditioning that our children are seeing that big families are normal, good, fun, healthy, Catholic, and everybody's Catholic. And I think a new kind of educational system could emerge as a result of the homeschool movements and these looser movements, cottage schools, whatever. And because the faith dies out sometimes in history and then has a flourishing. And perhaps great saints are going to emerge from these new movements, these new families who are being bold and courageous and having lots of kids and raising them Catholic, raising them deeply Catholic. Yeah. That's what we can hope for.
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier just kind of the attacks on the family, especially maybe during holidays, Thanksgiving, that's kind of like a running comedy theme, sitcom theme, or just comedic theme that, you see these memes or whatever of families that are just in disarray at the Thanksgiving meal. It's like all the, because they're all coming together and, they haven't talked, or none of them are on the same page. And the devil just, obviously dances around that, because, he's already, attacking this whole period of Thanksgiving and crushing it with consumerism and materialism. And this one little small chance that the family does come together as a unit, because the devil hates the family. I've talked about it, a couple weeks ago. I talked about the Sunday devils. I had a friend and their family, and they always talked about the Sunday devils because but it seemed like almost every Sunday before they, would head out for church, everyone's trying to get ready, and it was just an attack, and the family was fighting, and it just came. And so I talked about it, and, I got to say I'm guilty of letting the Sunday devils come in, because there's a lot of stress trying to get the kids together and get them in the car or get breakfast and all that stuff and get to mass. Sometimes it can be a little hectic and a little stressful. Yeah. And I think the same thing, we can talk about like the Thanksgiving devils. We need to be careful on that. We don't need to think about it too much and worry about it too much where we manifest it. But I think we need to be aware that anytime you're going to take your children and have anything that is going to help them with their faith, and you're especially going to church, and especially the holy sacrifice of the Mass, or just family time coming together. I can look back on several, family Thanksgivings or Christmas where things got blown up. And that just makes sense. People don't pay attention to that. The devil's very subversive and behind the scenes. And it's just one of those things. It's just, we just can't get together anymore, whatever. And we just we blow it off. But really, truly, he hates the family ultimately, because that's where it begins. That's where change begins. Charles, it was wonderful having you on again. I'm thankful that you were able to be here, and I hope you and your family have a wonderful Thanksgiving and Advent season, and we look forward to the next time bringing you on The Obligation.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. This was great.
All right. God bless.
All right, God bless you.
We will pick up part 2 of this conversation with Charles Fraune next week, where we discuss Advent and the coming season of Christmas. If you'd like to learn more about Charles and pick up the book Slaying Dragons, you can go to his website at www.theslayingdragonsbook.com. Don't forget, registration's still open for the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas, March 5th, 2022. Go online, www.catholicmenofthecarolinas.org. Use the promo code radio, save $5. We are out of time. For the Obligation Radio Show, the Carolina Catholic Media Network, this is Jason Murphy. God bless, and Esto Vir.